Part 5. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Chao Ji Peng. Chapter 41. Hit this house? Zhu Daipen, who was looking forward to it, was startled. He glanced at the Tsuchiya behind Chen Ronghuo, and his thoughts moved slightly. He knew that with Chen Ronghuo's strength, he would put forward such a test, which meant that this test would definitely not be that simple. But he couldn't figure out how far an ordinary house could be reinforced even if it was reinforced. Thinking like this, he took a deep breath, walked out of the crowd, walked into the small courtyard, came to Chen Ronghuo and said, "Sir, if I destroy your house with one punch, don't blame me. No wonder, as long as you repair it for me when the time comes, I'll sleep at your house until it's repaired." Chen Ronghuo made a joke. When the villagers heard his words, they all burst into laughter. Zhu Daipen also laughed honestly. However, after laughing, his eyes stared at the house in front of him, but suddenly he showed a solemn look. "Sir, I wonder where you plan to let me fight." "Anywhere is fine." "A window, too." "Window? That's fine too." Chen Ronghuo spoke. "The windows of this earthen house are wooden windows with dense grids on the top and bottom. The grids are covered with a piece of cloth. Because the windows are thick and the eaves are long, they are not afraid of getting wet in the rain." He had just integrated 100 points of hardness properties of big rocks into the earth house. 100 points was the limit of this earth house. But he was also a little curious. I wonder if the doors and windows in this house are really that hard. Another reason why he asked Zhu Daipen to attack his house was that he wanted him to help him test the strength of the house. After all, this house was used by him to ward off ghosts. If Zhu Daipen could break it, then he would have to find another way. After hearing Chen Ronghuo's words, Zhu Daipen glanced at the window of the earthen house, hesitated for a moment, and did not punch the window directly. Despite Chen Ronghuo's words, he still felt a little embarrassed that he punched the small wooden window. Taking a deep breath, he got into a stance, suddenly puffed up his chest, and pumped his energy and blood into his right fist. "Open!" There was a loud shout, and Zhu Daipen suddenly punched out his fist. The wind howled like a heavy hammer. Even Chen Ronghuo, who was standing next to Zhu Daipen, could feel the amazing power of this punch. With his body, he would probably have broken bones and tendons immediately if he received this punch. Others outside the courtyard also nodded secretly. Zhu Daipen's punch had reached the limit of what his cultivation could achieve. With one punch or three punches like this, there is absolutely no problem in breaking the blue and white rock at the entrance of the village. Boom! But after Zhu Daipen punched the wall of Chen Ronghuo's earthen house, the earthen house shook, but not a single crack appeared. Zhu Daipen's expression suddenly changed and he quickly retracted his hand. At this time, his fist was red and painful, as if he had not just hit the wall, but hit a cold iron block. "Sir, I don't think I can break through this wall." He rubbed his right hand and said awkwardly, "Can you still let me try this window again?" "Can." Chen Ronghuo nodded, "Not only the windows, you can also try this door." "Good." Zhu Daipen took a deep breath and walked to the wooden door first. He felt that no matter what, this door was made of wood, so it shouldn't be as hard as it was just now. And even the wooden door is so hard and has hinges. He broke the folding page. Wouldn't the door also fall down? So with a thought, he once again gathered his maximum strength, and with a bang, he punched the wooden door of the earthen house again. Bang! There was a loud noise and the wooden door shook. But the wooden door shook not because it was overwhelmed, but because it was in a semi-active state. After punching out, Zhu Daipen quickly retracted his hand again. He knew that the warlock's methods were weird, but he never expected that they were so weird. An ordinary wooden door can actually be reinforced as strong as steel. His face was solemn, and his eagerness to become Chen Ronghuo's bodyguard prevented him from giving up easily. After his punch failed to burst the wooden door, he moved a few steps aside, came to the window, used his strength again, and punched out again. This time, his punch went straight to the gray-white cloth inside the lattice window. At this moment, he could no longer care about whether he was embarrassed or not. Bang! But the fabric on the window didn't move at all even after he punched it. After a moment, Zhu Deipen withdrew his fist, showing a look of decadence on his face. With one punch, he couldn't even break a piece of window cloth made by Chen Ronghuo. With such strength, how could Chen Ronghuo accept him as a bodyguard? It actually blocked. When Chen Ronghuo saw this scene, his eyes flashed. He was a little confused as to how the 100 points of hardness attributes he had integrated into the earthen house were distributed. Are all parts of the Tsuchi really the same? The most important thing is, can an ordinary piece of cloth incorporate the hardness of 100 large stones? With this in mind, he once again used the ability of ancient books to identify the earthen house, but he didn't get much information. Suddenly, he had an idea and melted the hard properties of the few big stones in his hand into the clothes he was wearing. However, this time, he didn't melt any hard properties and felt resistance. Chen Ronghuo looked up at the gray cloth on the window of the earth house, and then looked at his clothes, puzzled. Is this a sorcerer? It's really incredible. Village chief, you are knowledgeable, do you know what this ability is? At this time, the villagers who were watching the excitement were all talking about it. Everyone was amazed by Chen Ronghuo's ability. No one thought that Zhu Deipen, who ranked third in strength in the village, couldn't even break a layer of cloth made by Chen Ronghuo. It should be a blessing formation. Master Chen probably laid a blessing formation on this house. Huang Taizhong hesitated and said. He knew something about sorcerers and knew that some sorcerers could cast blessing formations to bless something and give it special abilities. He had never heard of any nearby sorcerer being able to strengthen an ordinary house to this extent. Sir, After 3 consecutive punches without any success, Zhu Deipen's face flushed, and he looked at Chen Ronghuo with a face full of shame. He secretly thought that he was overestimating himself. How could Chen Ronghuo value his ability? No need to be like this. Seeing Zhu Deipen's look, Chen Ronghuo smiled and said, it would be strange if you could break the house I reinforced. I just used this house to test your strength. Now it seems that your strength is not too strong, but not too bad. If you want to be my guard, you can barely do it. Let's do this, wait 2 days, and I will give you an answer. Chen Ronghuo planned to let Zhu Deipen struggle for a few more days, and when he was about to despair, he would accept him as a guard, so that he could do his best in the future. The power system of this book is a little different. After the protagonist contracts with Fat Cat, his cultivation level will immediately be equal to that of Zhu Deipen and others in the late stage of the warrior realm, instead of starting from the apprentice level, to the early stage, and then to the middle stage. So there are a lot of foreshadowings. I hope you can forgive me. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 42. Everyone, please be quiet. After sending Zhu Deipen away, Chen Ronghuo stretched out his hand and pressed it in front of him, then said loudly, I stayed in Xiaohe village mainly because of Huang Xiaoshan. Huang Xiaoshan is too young, so I can't teach him too much now. I can't sit still, so I plan to teach in Xiaohe village, teaching everyone to read and write, as well as some other knowledge. But my strength is limited, so I can only teach the children in the village and the members of the hunting team first. If others want to learn, they can listen outside, or ask others after class. I hope you can understand. Don't worry, sir, we all know it. The villagers all expressed their understanding. Chen Ronghuo's words were very polite. Before, they might have thought that this was a sign of Chen Ronghuo's guilty conscience. But after what happened yesterday, everyone knew that no matter how humble Chen Ronghuo was, he still had the strength of a tiger. You can't touch a tiger's butt. Even if this tiger doesn't look scary at all. Seeing everyone's response, Chen Ronghuo nodded secretly. His performance yesterday may not be that good, but no matter what, he has established a firm foothold in Xiahe village. Thinking of this in his heart, he waved his hand and said, "In this case, those who want to attend the class should come in, and we will start the class now." As he finished speaking, the children in the village and more than a dozen people from the hunting team hurriedly walked in through the fence gate. The children in Xiahe village, plus the members of the hunting team, a total of 40 to 50 people. However, Chen Ronghuo's farmyard is no smaller than a normal class, and it is more than enough to accommodate these people. The children sat in the front and the adults sat in the back, all showing an expression of listening attentively. Even the seriously injured Huang Lin and Huang Taizheng, who was already in his 70s or 80s, were mixed in with these people. Chen Ronghuo glanced at them and said nothing. He pondered for a moment and said, "Because there are some new people in the class this time, I will roughly repeat what I taught in the last class. I said in the last class that I teach you three aspects of knowledge. The first is ideology and morality, the second is literacy, the third is what is it." He paused slightly and looked at some children who attended the class yesterday. Mathematics. Several children shouted loudly immediately. "Well said." Chen Ronghuo clapped his hands lightly to show encouragement and then said, "But I also said before that morality comes first, that is, among the three aspects of knowledge, ideology and morality are the most important. For this reason, I will tell you two stories. One is about filial piety, the name is Shun moved the sky," the children replied in unison. Chen Ronghuo smiled, "Yes, the other one is about respecting teachers. Chen Men Li Shui." All the children were quite excited. Chen Ronghuo also had a smile on his face. It seems that everyone studied seriously in the last class. But there are some new students joining this class. You know, but they don't know yet. Are there any of you willing to retell these two stories to them? In the class of ideology and morality, filial piety must be ranked first no matter what. In addition to filial piety, he ranked respect for teachers and respect for morality second. But after arranging it like this, it's okay for him to tell the children in Xiahe village, but it would seem a little deliberate to tell the adults in the hunting team. So, he repeated what he said in the last class through the mouths of these children. This can test the children's learning effect. Secondly, it can enhance the children's interest in learning, and thirdly, it can subtly make the adults in the village accept his point of view. After the two children finished retelling the two stories, he continued, "The retellings by Zhu Xiaopeng and Huang Xiaoshan were both very good. In fact, after telling these two stories, I should first teach you how to write the two words filial piety and respect for teachers. But because I haven't made a blackboard and chalk yet, the literacy work has to be put on hold for the time being. Then, I will tell you another story. The name of the story is Serve the Country with Loyalty." Chen Ronghuo's storytelling naturally has to be linked to his own interests. He has already planned to follow the path of aristocratic lords, so the story of Serve the Country with Loyalty is just right. However, because these stories were originally stories about Earth, he also had to make some slight changes in the process of telling them. With great ambition, he would eat the meat of the barbarians when hungry, and drink the blood of the Xiongnu when thirsty. What a great Yufei, he is really bold. He is worthy of being the man who engraved "Serve the Country with Loyalty" on his back. Chen Ronghuo was only halfway through his story when Zhu Deipen slammed the stool with excitement. "But sir, I wonder which island Yufei is from. Who are the Hulu and Xiongnu?" Chen Ronghuo glanced at Zhu Deipen and said, "Just listen to your story." Zhu Deipen immediately looked embarrassed. Then, this class was spent with Chen Ronghuo telling stories in a rhythmic tone. There are usually no entertainment programs in Xiahe village. So even if Chen Ronghuo's stories were not particularly attractive, everyone still listened with great interest. An hour later, Chen Ronghuo said, "Okay, today's class ends here. Village Chief Huang, please stay for a moment, and the others can go first." Hearing what Chen Ronghuo said, everyone showed regret. These people, especially those in the hunting team, originally thought that learning from Chen Ronghuo would be a painful thing. But after one class, they were all conquered by Chen Ronghuo's stories. Even Ho San, who was more scheming than others, was the same. No matter how scheming he was just an 18-year-old young man from a poor mountain valley. After the crowd dispersed, Chen Ronghuo said to Huang Taizheng, village chief, "Please ask someone to help me get a rectangular wooden board that is as smooth as possible. I want to teach the villagers to write, and I must have a wooden board." "Don't worry, sir, I'll do it right away." Huang Taizheng naturally agreed to this. After Huang Taizheng left, Chen Ronghuo shook his head. In addition to the wooden board, he had to get another pen himself, but with the ability of his left hand, this should not be too difficult. At the same time, Zhu Daipen, who left Chen Ronghuo, suddenly asked Ho San on the road, "Ho San, did you see the crab in Mr. Chen's yard just now?" "See it? Is that the one we caught?" "It should be." Ho San's tone was also a little uncertain. "That's probably it, but how could it become like that?" "Warlock." Ho San murmured to himself, with a hint of heat in his eyes. Report the results again. Today's daily closing is 910, daily recommendation is 294, and after changing the recommendation after 2 p.m., it has increased by 760 collections. In addition, thanks to the 3 book friends Wuming Xiaozu 159, Shushi 120 and Gu Qingbei for their rewards. Finally, please recommend votes. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 43. After the villagers left, seeing the fiery look in Ho San's eyes, Zhu Daipen curled his lips. Of course he knew what Ho San was thinking. The hope of becoming a warlock was something no one would refuse. He looked back. There was also a hint of fiery in his eyes. No matter what, he had to become Chen Ronghuo's bodyguard. However, Chen Ronghuo did not express his opinion on the spot, which really made him uneasy. "Li Haishui, do you think Mr. Chen will accept me as a bodyguard?" he asked another person beside him. This person was about the same height as him, but he was extremely thin, like a stick, and his skin was very dark, which made him look a bit weird. He was Li Haishui. There were 2 members of the late warrior stage in the hunting team, one was Zhu Daipen, and the other was him. Hearing Zhu Daipen's question, Li Haishui said unhappily, "How should I know? Are you jealous?" Zhu Daipen smiled. Li Haishui didn't say anything, but he was thinking in his heart whether he should recommend himself. If he could become a warrior of the earth, or even a warrior of a higher level after following Chen Ronghuo, it would be a blessing that could only be cultivated in several lifetimes. Not to mention strength and status, after becoming a warrior of the earth, the lifespan alone would be as long as 150 years. Compared with the lifespan of ordinary people of 70 to 80 years, this temptation is not small. Chen Ronghuo didn't know what Zhu Daipen and others were thinking. After everyone left, he came to the fat cat, grabbed it, held it in his arms, and then walked out while rubbing it. Meow. The fat cat struggled twice, and then let it go. Holding the fat cat in his arms, Chen Ronghuo found that this guy was really fat. He didn't know if he weighed 20 kilograms, but he must have weighed more than 10 kilograms. Holding the fat cat, Chen Ronghuo strolled around the village twice. Smelly liquid grass, thick and juicy leaves. The juice is black, and the fresh juice has a foul odor, which can prevent insects. After the juice is left for 2 hours, the odor disappears, and it can be used as ink and dye, and it is not easy to fade when applied to objects. White spring wood, the juice of this wood can be used as white dye. While strolling, he scanned one thing after another through the identification ability of ancient books. In the end, he found 2 things that were useful to him among many things. The juice of the stinky liquid grass can be used to dye wooden boards, and the white spring wood can be used as chalk. In this way, the 2 essential things for his teaching have a source. To take the juice of the stinky liquid grass, Xuanhuan naturally did not need to crush it. He found a few stinky liquid grasses with thick leaves, reached out and touched their leaves, and soon, he touched out several ink-colored properties of the stinky liquid grass from them. As for the white spring wood, he did the same thing. He came to a white spring wood, reached out and touched it for a while, and also touched out a lot of white properties from it. After finishing the job, he carried the fat cat back home. It was only while carrying the fat cat that he realized again that he had to strengthen his strength as soon as possible. Apart from anything else, if he was not strong enough, his arms would ache after carrying the fat cat for a while. When he returned home, Huang Taizheng, who had left earlier, just rushed over with a huge wooden board more than 2 meters long in his hand. 100-year-old poplar wood board, cut as a whole with a sharp tool, cut by Huang Taizheng. The wooden board was rectangular and had an extremely smooth surface. Xuanhuan took a look at the wooden board, and such a message immediately appeared in the ancient book. "Sir, do you think this wooden board is suitable?" Huang Taizheng asked immediately after he walked in front of Xuanhuan with the wooden board. "Okay." Xuanhuan nodded. "Sir, where should I put this board? Do you want me to make a frame for you and fix it in the yard?" Huang Taizheng was accompanied by another person, Li Haishui, who had talked with Zhu Daipen before and was thinking about whether to recommend himself to Xuanhuan and try to be accepted as a guard by Xuanhuan. Zhu Daipen was a bit naive. At this time, he was still at home thinking about how to make Xuanhuan happy so that he would agree to accept him as a guard. But Li Haishui had already started to act. "Okay, then I'll trouble you." Xuanhuan smiled. "No trouble, no trouble." Li Haishui waved his hand quickly. His skinny and tall body like a stick made such a move, which looked a bit funny. After asking Xuanhuan, he began to use the tools he brought with him, and together with Huang Taizheng, fixed the more than 2-meter-long blackboard in the yard. Xuanhuan put the fat cat down and just watched from the side without intervening. Li Haishui and Huang Taizheng were very fast. It didn't take long for them to securely fix the wooden board in the yard. After the fixation was completed, Li Haishui hesitated and said to Xuanhuan, "Mr. Chen, my strength is about the same as Zhu Daipen's. I wonder if I can be your bodyguard." Xuanhuan glanced at Li Haishui. This tall and thin man was very perceptive. Not to mention his strength, if we talk about his ability to do things, he is definitely much better than Zhu Daipen, the fool. But it was precisely because of Zhu Daipen's stupidity that he decided to take Zhu Daipen as a bodyguard. For him at the moment, why should a bodyguard be so smart? For the time being, all he wanted was a thug. If I change to a smarter guard, who knows if he will see something from me? At the same time, this is also the reason why he did not ask Ho-san to be his guard. Looking at Li Haishui, Xuanhuan smiled and said, "I think Zhu Daipen is good, I may take him as a guard first. We'll see about your opinion later. After all, I'm in Xiahe village now, and it's useless to have so many guards." Li Haishui's expression froze when he heard this. But he didn't have any resentment. If he had to complain, he could only blame his bad luck. "You don't have to be disappointed." Seeing Li Haishui's expression, Xuanhuan shook his head and said, "It seems that I may really have to stay in Xiahe village for a long time. If you perform well, you will have opportunities in the future." He first drew a pie to give Li Haishui some motivation. In fact, it is not impossible to take Li Haishui as a guard, and it is much better to have 2 guards to obey orders than 1. It's just that he doesn't have the cultivation now, so it's not suitable. Don't worry, sir. I will never let you down. Hearing what Chen Ronghuo said, Li Haishui's eyes lit up again. Having a chance is better than having no chance. Okay, you go back first. Chen Ronghuo waved his hand and said to Huang Taizheng at the same time, and village chief, how many salted fish are there in the village? I wonder if you can send me more. Salted fish. Huang Tishan's heart suddenly moved when he heard this. Salted fish is not something that tastes very good. He clearly remembered that on the first day Chen Ronghuo came to Ziahe village, he didn't touch a single salted fish at the dinner. In this case, Chen Ronghuo must have his own purpose for asking for salted fish. And in his opinion, this purpose is probably related to the demon in the village who specializes in stealing salted fish. Thinking of this, he immediately agreed, okay, after I go back, I will immediately ask the villagers to send all the salted fish from each family to you, sir. If Chen Ronghuo intends to get rid of the demon in the village, he will definitely agree with both hands. Send them all. Chen Ronghuo was stunned for a moment, but did not refuse. Meow. The fat cat not far away also had his eyes brightened. In this way, it will not have to steal fish in the future. It can sleep when it is full and eat when it is full. Chen Ronghuo turned his head and glanced at the fat cat, sneering in his heart. If you are fat, don't run away. You can't run away even if you want to. There seems to be a line in the lyrics that goes like this, right? It doesn't matter if it's not, just assume that he changed it himself. The fat cat does not admit that he is a demon and does not want to sign a demon contract with him. He wants to gain strength as soon as possible, so he must use a little strategy. Thanks to the initial mark for the 1000 reward, and the rewards from 2 book friends Book Envoy 120 and Book Mirage. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 44. After Huang Taizheng and Li Haishui left, Chen Ronghuo walked to the wooden board cut from the century-old poplar tree, pressed his left hand on the board, and began to integrate the ink-colored attributes of the stinky liquid grass into it. Black ancient poplar board, ink-colored attribute of stinky liquid grass add 12. After a while, the attributes of the ancient poplar board changed suddenly, and the whole board turned pitch black. Even if Huang Taizheng, who cut this board with his own hands, came back, he would not recognize that this was the previous board. When this ancient poplar board completely became a black board, Chen Ronghuo walked in front of it, stretched out his left hand, and began to draw on the blackboard with his left index finger. As he drew, white twisted snake-shaped characters immediately appeared on the blackboard. This kind of snake-shaped characters is the common characters in the world of gods. The reason why this white font appeared is because when Chen Ronghuo drew, he integrated the white attribute of Bai Chunmu into the part he drew. It was just because this was the first time that Chen Ronghuo wrote the words of the world of gods, and because he wrote it with his left hand, the handwriting looked a little ugly. After finishing a line of handwriting, Chen Ronghuo frowned. He would stay in the world of gods for 300 years, and he would most likely become a noble lord, so he must be proficient in the words of the world of gods. Thinking of this, he brushed his left hand over what he had just written, took it all away, and then started writing again. For the time being, he did not ask to write all the words in standard, but the words to be taught in class tomorrow must be written first. Not long after Huang Taizheng returned, he went door to door, collected all the remaining salted fish in the village, packed them in several large bags, and sent them to Chen Ronghuo. When delivering the salted fish, he was surprised to see that the wooden board had turned pure black. But he did not ask, and Chen Ronghuo did not explain anything. In the following time, in addition to eating at Huang Taizheng, preparing meals for Fat Cat, and continuing to cultivate feelings with Fat Cat, Chen Ronghuo practiced writing the words of the world of gods in front of the blackboard in his yard. Sharpening the knife does not delay the chopping of wood. In this world, strength is important, but some things cannot be ignored. After half a day, he was finally able to write a few words skillfully with both hands. At this time, the sky gradually darkened. In the evening, when the sun had not completely set and the silver moon showed a sporadic corner, Chen Ronghuo looked up and found that there was indeed a time display on the edge of the moon. I don't know if that thing will come tonight. The breeze blew, and Chen Ronghuo shivered and felt a little cold. He walked to the root of the wall and took a look at the semi-petrified crab that had begun to eat the soil in the yard as food at some point. He grabbed the other two large claws and began to drag it into the house. It was about to be night, and he was worried that the knocking ghost would come again. His house had been strengthened by him, and with the fat cat there, he was not particularly worried, but he was a little worried that the crab would be left outside and harmed by the knocker. However, after the big guy was integrated with the petrification attribute, the weight soared straight up. Now it was probably heavier than him. He spent a long time dragging it into the house. This idiot. The fat cat on the side saw the scene and felt happy. Chen Ronghuo's performance was magical, which really shocked it. It was not until he saw the scene that he finally regained his confidence and sense of superiority. The big river crab being pulled by Chen Ronghuo was mentally collapsed at this time. He had been harmed by Chen Ronghuo and began to eat soil. At this time, seeing Chen Ronghuo pulling him into the small dark room, he was really terrified. He didn't know how Chen Ronghuo would harm him again. After dragging the semi-petrified river crab into the house, Chen Ronghuo let out a long breath. As he looked at the big guy, he suddenly had an idea. He merged the black and white attributes he had obtained before into its two big claws. In a moment, a mighty river crab with a body that seemed to be carved from stone and two claws, one black and one white, appeared in front of him. It seems pretty good. After looking at the big guy, Chen Ronghuo smiled. He suddenly felt that it was interesting to raise a crab that he didn't have to worry about. Especially since the sky feeds on soil, he can even save food. Night fell. Chen Ronghuo lit the oil lamp. Under the light, he summed up the gains and losses of the day, and at the same time, holding the yellow wood bow in his hand, he felt out all the remaining attributes. Fat Cat got into his bed early in the morning. As for the half-petrified river crab, he stared with a pair of protruding eyes, looking at himself turned into two claws, one black and one white, and wanted to cry but had no tears. But Chen Ronghuo ignored these two guys. After a long time, after he had figured out all the toughness and precision attributes of the yellow wood bow, he felt sleepy and blew out the oil lamp and began to sleep peacefully. The knocking ghost seemed to have given up after experiencing the failure last night and did not come again. Or maybe it came here before and was just passing by, and now it has forgotten this place. The next morning, the sun shone in through the window, and Chen Ronghuo yawned, feeling refreshed. After getting up, he first dragged the semi-petrified river crab out of the house to prevent it from digging a hole in the house. Then he prepared a hearty salted fish breakfast for Fat Cat, and then he staggered to Huang Tishan's house and had a breakfast. Then he wandered around the village, using the ability of ancient books to identify things and enhance his knowledge. Have you heard that someone just saw people from Giant Crocodile Village outside the village? 3 or 4 people died there last night. 3 or 4 people died, what happened? It is said that it was done by the knocking ghost. The knocking ghost in Shanghe village ran to Giant Crocodile Village last night. Just when it was almost 10 o'clock in the morning, when Chen Ronghuo was about to go back to class, he suddenly heard several villagers talking about it. When he heard that the knocking ghost had killed someone again, he took a breath. He didn't know those people who died, so he didn't feel deeply. But the death of these people made him feel fortunate again, Fortunately the ghost didn't rush into his room the night before, perhaps because of the injury he had just received. Shaking his head, Chen Ronghuo returned to his home. With his strength, there was no way to deal with the knocking ghost. At 10 o'clock in the morning, the children in the village and the members of the hunting team gathered at his home and began to listen to his class. Today, I will formally teach you to read and write. When everyone saw the blackboard in Chen Ronghuo's yard and Chen Ronghuo drew a line of white words on the blackboard with his left hand, they were all surprised. "Sir, what is your ability? Is it also a sorcerer's method?" Zhu Deipen's eyes lit up. Although this ability seems useless in combat, it still shocked him because of its magic. "Listen to your class carefully," Chen Ronghuo scolded. Zhu Deipen straightened his back immediately after hearing this. But after straightening his back, he looked at the half-petrified river crab with two big claws at the base of the wall, one black and one white. In comparison, this guy was just as eye-catching. Time passed day by day. In a flash, it was the 8th day since Chen Ronghuo came to the world of gods. In the previous 7 days, Chen Ronghuo prepared a lot of delicious and nutritious salted fish for Fat Cat every day. After eating salted fish for a few days, Fat Cat was obviously fatter. At the same time, whether it was day or night, he kept Fat Cat by his side, making Fat Cat more and more attached to him. However, it was precisely because of this that Fat Cat, immersed in the good days, seemed to have forgotten what Chen Ronghuo had said to it, that he wanted to find a demon contract. Reporting results: today's daily collection is 720, and the daily push is 264, which is a bit miserable, especially the recommendation votes. I don't know when the goal of 400 daily pushes can be achieved. Please support it. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 45. For 7 days, in addition to making Shamao more attached to him, Chen Ronghuo gained nothing in other aspects. After staying in Xiahe village for 7 days, he not only became completely familiar with the people in Xiahe village, but also learned a lot of information about the world of gods that he didn't know from the mouths of each villager. At the same time, because he watched people practicing martial arts in Xiahe village every day and learned from some children, he also mastered the incomplete version of the training method of Tiger Liang's in fist. Naturally, he would not practice this boxing technique during the day. But at night, he would type dozens of times around the house every day. Although his martial arts qualifications are not high, with only 2 points, without the support of adventure or a large number of resources, it is estimated that it will take decades to practice and become an earth warrior. But he will not give up on himself. Especially when he has the help of his left-hand power and ancient books. Zhu Deipen and Li Haishui both had 2 points of martial arts qualification, the same as him. However, the two of them are in their 30s and are already at the late stage of the warrior realm. They are not too high, but they can almost have a certain degree of self-preservation in Green Water Bay. He doesn't care about how strong he is now, he just wants to not be in a hurry in some special situations. Because he eats a lot of nutritious food every day and started practicing Tiger Liang's in fist, he can obviously feel that his body is much better. Of course, it's just that he's much better. At most, he is just a martial arts apprentice, still a beginner. There is still a long way to go before he can become a formal martial artist. At the same time, in 7 days, excluding the energy consumed in the first 2 days, the ancient book also accumulated 20 points of energy in the next 5 days. This speed exceeded his expectations. He guessed that it might have something to do with the fact that he used his left hand to cook a lot of nutritious food every day. However, he did not come up with energy deduction methods to solve the underground insect plague. Now that he has completely established himself in Xiahe village, there is not much benefit in coming up with this method at this time. In another world, he rarely does things that don't bring much profit. Call. Call. In the morning, After Chen Ronghuo stretched his muscles, he breathed in a special way and punched out in his own room, and began to practice the Tiger Heart training fist. The essence of Tiger Liangs in boxing mainly lies in using special breathing methods when punching, and always keeping the picture of the tiger in mind. The tiger that Chen Ronghuo visualized was the tiger in the zoo that he had seen on Earth. This makes his punches less powerful and powerful, even inferior to some of the children in Xiahe village. In fact, the reason why the Tiger Liangs in fist in Xiahe village is an incomplete version is because it lacks the picture of the tiger. However, due to the large amount of nutritional supplements he received every day, his speed in practicing Tiger Heart Liangs in fist was actually faster than that of the children in the village. After finishing the 2 punches and sweating slightly on his forehead, Chen Ronghuo slowly stopped, opened the door, and dragged the half-petrified river crab out of the house. The reason why he judged that his health had improved was not because of the ancient book, but because when dragging the river crab, it was much easier than the first time. After dragging the river crab out of the house, he sat on a deck chair in the yard and basked in the morning sun leisurely. Meow. The fat cat walked out of the room, shaking his increasingly fat body, and ran to a stool next to him. He raised a furry paw and pulled his hand. Chen Ronghuo was helpless. I could only follow the fat cat's wishes, put my hands on it, and start kneading it. Meow. The fat cat narrowed his eyes in intoxication, showing a comfortable expression. It tilted its head, the blue sky and the rising sun reflected in its pupils. Chen Ronghuo's figure also appeared in the corner of its pupil world, seeming to have occupied a place in its heart. Time passes like this. According to the usual routine of life, between 8:30 and 10 o'clock in the morning, Chen Ronghuo once again hugged the fat cat and walked to the street like ordinary villagers. Under a big tree, he met some idle people in the village. The old man and the old lady who were fine started chatting. Of course, most of the time, he just listens and doesn't interrupt. Zhu Qian, the pyromancer of Greenwater Bay Town, went to Giant Crocodile Village yesterday. This year, each village will have to pay a tax of 100,000 copper coins to Greenwater Bay Town, which is doubled from every year. At the same time, 10 more people will be hired. Warrior, join the town's guard. Several other villages have already agreed, and Zhu Qian is expected to come to our village in the next 2 days. An old man was mumbling under a big tree, looking a little decadent. Xiahe village is second to none in terms of strength among the nearby villages, but it is not wealthy. 100,000 copper coins, I'm afraid every household would have to spend all their remaining money. As for sending 10 warriors to temporarily join the town's escort team, it is even more dangerous. Once the war between Lushwiven Town and Angsha Town officially begins, it is not known how many of these 10 warriors will be able to come back. You must know that the total number of warriors in the entire Xiahe village is less than 20. However, their Xiahe village lives in the territory affiliated with Lushwiven Town. Although they cannot be completely regarded as the territorial citizens of Lushwiven Town, if they do not act according to the requirements of Lushwiven Town, and use the methods of the Lord of Lushwiven Town, they will at such a moment, I am afraid that troops will soon be dispatched to suppress it. Chen Ronghuo's heart moved when he heard this. After 7 days of understanding, he has almost understood the situation here. The Lord of Greenwater Bay Town is an earth warrior. In addition to himself, there are 2 earth warriors and 4 or 5 warlocks in the territory. In addition to these, there are more than 100 formal warriors in the entire territory. This is a huge force, at least for Xiahe village. Once it is hostile to Greenwater Bay Town, Greenwater Bay Town can easily suppress Xiahe village. Many disasters. Another old man sighed. Chen Ronghuo listened quietly on the side without speaking. But he knew that he had to subdue the fat cat as soon as possible and have the strength to protect himself. Especially when Zhu Qian, the fire warlock of Greenwater Bay Town, was about to come to Xiahe village. Before, the people of Xiahe village thought he was a liar. Now a real warlock came. If they saw him, would they have the same idea? He has just established a foothold in Xiahe village and doesn't want to cause trouble. As soon as he thought about it, he put his consciousness on the ancient book and issued an instruction to the ancient book. In addition to contracting Fat Cat, help me deduce a method that is not dangerous and can gain a certain strength within 1 or 2 days. He planned to leave Xiahe village for a trip, which would not take too long, only about 1 or 2 days. The 20 points of energy he accumulated with the ancient book were for this moment. By leaving Xiahe village, he could avoid Zuqiang and gain a certain strength. But these 2 points were not his main purpose. His main purpose was that a short separation was better than a new love. After his careful care these days, Fat Cat was now very attached to him. If he left Xiahe village for 2 days, Fat Cat could not see him, could only eat ordinary salted fish every day, and no one would scratch it every day. What would happen to Fat Cat? This was just a small trick, but such a small trick was destined to be extremely useful to the lazy and greedy Fat Cat. As his thoughts moved, a message immediately appeared on the ancient book. Thanks to Xuanhuan for the 500 coin reward. The current daily push has reached 240. I don't know if I can reach the goal of 400 today. Fatty will add an extra chapter today. I hope everyone can support it. I hope I can reach 400 today. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 46. In a valley in a mountain dozens of miles away, there is a blood snake that has just advanced to a second-level demon. This blood snake is guarding a blood tea tree. The reason why it can advance to a second-level demon is the credit of the blood tea tree. You can walk all the way to the northwest, from the junction of Hongyu village and Qinjian village, to there. Because the blood snake has just advanced, it has shed a layer of snake skin, and its strength has seriously declined. It is currently only the strength of the first level middle stage, and it will take half a month to recover. You can find a way to kill it, or scare it away. Then pick the camellia of the blood tea tree that will bloom at 4 p.m. tomorrow. After taking the blood tea flower, you will be able to reach the peak of the apprentice level warrior in a short time. After that, as long as you master a technique, you can advance to become a formal warrior. A message emerged from the ancient book. In addition to these words, there is also a map. After Chen Ronghuo carefully read this information several times, he remembered it firmly in his mind. Apprentice-level warriors are not very strong, but with his normal talent, even if he eats nutritious food every day, it will probably take 1 or 2 years to reach the peak of the apprentice level. For someone with the same talent as him, if he only eats ordinary food, it is possible to reach the peak of the apprentice level in 5 or 6 years. And this refers to adults. If it is a child, the time will be much longer. Therefore, after receiving this message, he immediately made up his mind and planned to go to the valley once according to the guidance of the ancient book. Of course, with his strength, he certainly cannot deal with the blood snake, even if the blood snake has a serious decline in strength due to molding. So he must bring 2 people with him on this trip. With the thought in his mind, he had an idea. At this time, an old man suddenly asked tentatively, once the 2 territories fight, the people will definitely suffer. Mr. Chen, do you think Green Water Bay Town and Red Sand Town will fight? I just came here and don't know the situation, so it's hard to say. Chen Ronghuo smiled and slowly avoided the topic. He knew what the old man meant. He obviously wanted to help Xiahe village overcome this difficulty. But he is now a clay Buddha crossing the river, and he can't protect himself, so he naturally won't take the lead. Unless he can subdue the Fat Cat and become a formal practitioner after returning from this trip, and then find the noble reward scroll as soon as possible and become a noble lord. In this way, If he chooses to set Xiaohe village as his private territory, everything in Xiaohe village will be his, and he will naturally not let his people help others fight for life and death. But even so, he still has to make many preparations before he can officially compete with Greenwater Baytown. With these thoughts flashing in his mind, he entered the listening mode again and said nothing. The old man was helpless. When it was almost 10 o'clock in the morning, Chen Ronghuo stood up from the stone, hugged the fat cat, and walked slowly back home. When he got home, the hunting team and the children in the village were already waiting. The adults were fine, but some playful children gathered in front of the half-petrified river crab and teased it curiously. The river crab, which looked extremely powerful, did not resist, or it was no longer able to resist. Let the class start now. Chen Ronghuo put the fat cat down, and walked behind the desk that he had built in the yard 2 days ago while it was reluctant to leave, and knocked on the table with his hand. As he finished speaking, all the children returned to their seats. Even the warriors of the hunting team straightened their backs. Now he teaches every day, not only telling stories related to ideology and morality, but also teaching these people knowledge in both writing and mathematics. At the same time, after each class, he will distribute a portion of food to everyone. Those with poor performance will not get any, and those with good performance will get an extra portion. The food he distributed was made by himself with his left hand. Not only was it unique in taste, but it was also nutritious and of great benefit to martial arts practice. Therefore, even the members of the hunting team were greedy for the food he distributed. As for the children who had never eaten such delicious food, it was even more so. Therefore, he could mobilize everyone's enthusiasm without too much management. Everyone would concentrate and listen carefully in every class he taught. After a few days of study, everyone has mastered the numbers within 10. Today I will teach you the concepts of greater than and less than. Chen Ronghuo talked freely, and wrote numbers on the blackboard with his left hand. Seeing Chen Ronghuo's actions, everyone's eyes lit up. After so long, everyone already knew that there was nothing special about this blackboard in the yard. Many of them had scratched it with their fingers, but no matter how many times they scratched, they could not write on it like Chen Ronghuo. A class passed slowly. It was time to end the get out of class, and no one of the more than 40 people noticed it. It is absolutely incredible to make more than 40 people concentrate for an hour, including children. But Chen Ronghuo did it. Okay, today's class ends here. Chen Ronghuo stood behind the desk and tapped the table lightly. In addition, I have something to do this afternoon and tomorrow, so our class will be suspended. Class suspended? What is the master going to do? Everyone was stunned when they heard Chen Ronghuo's words. Even though Chen Ronghuo's lessons were a little difficult for them who had never been exposed to these things, especially for children, everyone was still very interested in his lessons because of his various methods. Hearing everyone's discussion, Chen Ronghuo waved his hand and said, "Okay, you all go back first. It's just some of my personal matters, you don't have to guess." In addition, the village chief, Huang Lin and Zhu Deipen, wait for a moment. "Okay, young master." Zhu Deipen's eyes lit up immediately when he heard the words. So many days have passed, and Chen Ronghuo has never mentioned the matter of taking him as a guard, which made him extremely desperate and even gave up. Now when he heard Chen Ronghuo calling him, he immediately felt full of strength in his body. But he was also worried that Chen Ronghuo called him this time not because of the guard. Or maybe it was because of the guard, but Chen Ronghuo refused him. "Young master, I wonder why you kept us." After everyone left, Huang Taizheng asked curiously. Chen Ronghuo replied, "It's not a big deal, I just have to leave Xiaohe village in the next 2 days. If possible, I want to take Zhu Deipen and Huang Lin with me, is that okay?" The blood snake currently only has the strength of a first-level demon in the middle stage because of molding, which is about the same as Huang Lin's strength. With Zhu Deipen's strength in the late stage of the warrior realm, it should not be difficult to deal with the blood snake. The reason why he brought Huang Lin with him was just to be on the safe side. At the same time, when Zhu Deipen took action, he would be safer if he kept Huang Lin by his side. Of course, there is no problem. Huang Taizheng agreed immediately after being startled. Although he is still the head of Xiaohe village and Huang Lin's biological father, with Chen Ronghuo's current prestige in the village, even if he refused, Zhu Deipen and Huang Lin might not listen to him. But he was a little confused and didn't know what Chen Ronghuo was going to do after leaving Xiaohe village. Second update, there will be another update in the evening. Do you still have recommendation votes? I still need 50 votes to get 400. If I can get 400 votes today, I will continue to update 3 times tomorrow. And thank you to Happy668 for another 1000 reward, Winterbee for 500 coins, and Sin's Old Man for 200 coins, landing 300 years in advance. Author, Chao Ji Dupang. Chapter 47. Wake up. Chen Ronghuo rubbed the fat cat sleeping comfortably on the stool. Meow. The fat cat looked at him, not knowing what he was going to do. Chen Ronghuo picked up the fat cat, touched it twice, and said with a flash of his eyes, I have something to go out for, I should be back tomorrow, you will be alone at home tonight, understand? Meow. The fat cat was startled, jumped out of Chen Ronghuo's arms, jumped onto the stool beside him, and looked at him seriously with a pair of eyes. As if he wanted to see if he was joking with him. Ah, seeing the fat cat's look, Chen Ronghuo smiled, rubbed its head and said, you guy, can't you understand human language? Meow. The fat cat tilted its head to avoid Chen Ronghuo's hand. Meow. Then it looked at Chen Ronghuo twice, turned its head and called twice, as if telling him that he must come back. Don't worry, I should be back in one night. Chen Ronghuo said with a smile. He lied. The blood tea tree will not bloom until 4 p.m. tomorrow. After he gets the blood tea tree, he can only come out of the mountain. It is unlikely that he can return to Xiaohe village on the same day. And even if he can return, he will not return. Because his purpose is to let Fat Cat feel the taste of his long absence. Although this may be a bit painful for Fat Cat, Chen Ronghuo can only use a little trick to subdue it as soon as possible. Fat Cat finally agreed. Or it has no reason and no right to disagree. It just lay back on the stool, but it can't sleep anymore. It remembers clearly that the last time its owner abandoned it, the child said that he would come to find it in the future, but after so much time, it has never seen its former little master once. Thinking about it, it raised a cat paw and looked a few times. It's just one night, it should be easy to get through it, right? But, you must come back. Don't abandon me. I can actually eat less. After lunch, Huang Taizheng brought Zhu Deipen and Huang Lin to Chen Ronghuo's yard. Zhu Deipen and Huang Lin each brought a black bag and a weapon. Zhu Deipen's weapon was a thick-backed knife, and Huang Lin's weapon was a short sword. Are you all ready? Chen Ronghuo asked. Don't worry, sir, we are ready. Zhu Deipen seemed a little excited. Chen Ronghuo did not mention the guard. But he was not really stupid. He knew that Chen Ronghuo had something to ask him this time. If he did a good job, the guard would definitely be much easier. Chen Ronghuo rubbed the fat cat in his arms, put it on the stool, stood up and said to the two of them, since everything is ready, let's set off now. As he spoke, he took the lead and walked out of the yard. The fat cat lay on the stool and looked at him, then curled his head into his soft and fat belly. Zhu Deipen and Huang Lin hurriedly followed. You two remember this. Huang Taizheng also followed the 3 people. After sending them to the entrance of the village, he told Zhu Deipen and Huang Lin, after leaving the village, no matter what happens, you must listen to the master. Uncle Huang, Dad, don't worry. Zhu Deipen and Huang Lin said almost in unison. They are not children anymore, so they naturally know what to do. After Chen Ronghuo told Huang Taizheng that he was relieved, he took Zhu Deipen and Huang Lin and walked all the way to the northwest. On the house in Chen Ronghuo's courtyard, the fat cat climbed up at some point. It stood at the highest point of the roof, looking at Chen Ronghuo from afar, watching his back go away little by little, disappearing, and after a while, it suddenly lay down dejectedly, with dull eyes. And its orange fur, under the sunlight, seemed to blend with the earth color of the roof, as if it had become less shiny than before. After leaving the village, Chen Ronghuo suddenly said, "I am practicing a special secret technique now. It is not suitable to take action before it is completed. So this time when you go out, if you encounter any danger, you can try to block it. Do you understand?" Zhu Deipen and Huang Lin were both stunned when they heard Chen Ronghuo's words. But the two of them reacted quickly. Huang Lin said solemnly, "Don't worry, sir. I will follow you this time and will never let you take action." "And me too." Zhu Deipen also patted his chest and said, "If you want to do anything, just order me around. My strength cannot be compared with yours, but I am still useful in this area nearby." Chen Ronghuo smiled when he heard it. He said, "Don't be so nervous. I am going out this time just to find some materials. Although you will need to take action, the danger is not great. The mountain where the blood camellia is located is dozens of miles away from Xiahe village. That mountain is actually the mountain where the hunting team often hunts. Last time, Huang Lin was attacked by the shadow leopard there. Because there was enough time, and because Chen Ronghuo was afraid that he would not be able to stand it if he walked too fast, he deliberately slowed down along the way. The three of them walked slowly, and even though they were not fast, they arrived at the boundary between Hongyu village and Qinjian village at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. When crossing the border of Hongyu village, Chen Ronghuo glanced in the direction of Hongyu village from a distance. At this time, there was not a single idle person in Hongyu village. However, he could see soldiers wearing helmets and armor in Redfish village. Further west from Hongyu village is the territory of Angsha town. Zhu Deipen and Huang Lin looked slightly solemn when they saw the scene in Hongyu village. "Let's go." Chen Ronghuo glanced at the two of them and spoke calmly. "This place is very close to Redfish village, and he doesn't want to cause trouble here. As for detoring through Qinjian village, it is unreasonable. Qinjian village is not big, but there are many hills in it. If you take a detour, you don't know how far it will take." Zhu Deipen and Huang Lin nodded and quickly followed Chen Ronghuo's footsteps. The three of them walked like this for another hour or so, and finally arrived at the foot of the mountain. "The mountain in front of us is actually not very high, it just looks high because of the high terrain. At the same time, the mountains here are connected to the mountains, stretching for hundreds of miles. In the deep mountains and ancient forests, there is a lot of poisonous miasma and haze. Unless they are very powerful people, few people will go too deep into this mountain. Sir, is this our goal?" Standing at the foot of the mountain, Zhu Deipen asked curiously. He has been to this mountain many times and is quite familiar with it. He doesn't know what Chen Ronghuo is doing here. "Yes, it's right here." Chen Ronghuo nodded. "Our target is a blood-threaded snake that became a second-level demon not long ago. Follow me." As he spoke, Chen Ronghuo led the way around the foot of the mountain and followed the guidance of the ancient book. "What the hell? Second-level demon?" But after hearing Chen Ronghuo's words, Zhu Deipen and Huang Lin's expressions suddenly froze. The level of the second-level monsters is equivalent to that of the Earth Warriors. If Chen Ronghui doesn't take action, given their strength, they may only die. Of course Chen Ronghuo knew what the two of them were thinking. He shook his head and said with a smile, "Don't worry, that demon shed its skin once when it broke through, and its strength was seriously damaged. Although it is at the second level, its strength is currently only at the mid-level of the first level. Taking it down with your strength is not a problem." Zhu Deipen and Huang Lin were relieved. Zhu Deipen can handle the mid-level first-order strength by himself. Moreover, if such a second-level monster with reduced strength could be killed, it could be sold for tens of thousands of copper coins, which would definitely be a huge fortune. Although this wealth will definitely belong to Chen Ronghuo in the end, they are still excited. They had never seen a second-level monster, let alone had the chance to kill it this time. However, as Chen Ronghuo led the way, the group gradually arrived at a foggy valley at the foot of the mountain. The expressions of Zhu Deipen and Huang Lin froze again. Misty Valley. Young master, the blood-threaded snake you mentioned is not in the Misty Valley, right? Zhu Deipen and other people who often enter this mountain know that this valley is absolutely forbidden. Because almost no one who enters can come out. Reported results: daily collection of 550, daily push of 425, daily push of over 400, according to the previous update plan. 3 chapters will continue tomorrow, and I hope everyone can continue to support. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 48. Sir, you can't enter here. Zhu Deipen looked at the grey-white mist-shrouded valley in front of him, shuddered and said, "This place is called the Misty Valley, and almost no one who enters it can come out. I heard that the environment here is extremely complicated, and you can't find the way out when you go in. Moreover, there are powerful demons entrenched inside, and even earth warriors have their bones buried in it." That's it? Chen Ronghuo touched his chin when he heard this. He came here because of the guidance of the ancient book. When he asked about the opportunity in the ancient book, he clearly put the words "less dangerous" in it. This means that as long as he follows the map given by the ancient book, he will probably not encounter danger. As for getting lost, it is even more nonsense when there are maps from ancient books. In that case, let's rest here for one night. It won't be too late to go into the mountains tomorrow. He wasn't in a hurry either. Danger in the mountains. The blood tea tree will not bloom until tomorrow afternoon. If he enters the valley at this time, he will have to stay there for almost a whole day. It is better to wait until the time is approaching tomorrow before going in. Judging from the map guided by the ancient book, the blood tea tree was located in a cave in the valley. The cave was not very far from the mouth of the valley, and he could go there later. Come in again tomorrow? Just hearing Chen Ronghuo's words, Zhu Deipen and Huang Lin looked at each other and laughed bitterly. If Chen Ronghuo insisted on entering the Misty Valley, the two of them would have to follow him. Zhu Deipen scratched his head, not knowing what to do. Huang Lin's heart moved slightly. Warlocks cultivate the power of the soul. Expose the power of your soul, and you can sense everything around you even with your eyes closed. He thought that Chen Ronghuo was planning to use his soul power to explore the path, so he continued to persuade, "Sir, not only is the environment in the Misty Valley complex, but the mist inside is also extremely special. After entering, not only the eyesight will be affected, but the warlock's soul power will also be affected by the fog inside. Some warlocks have thought about coming here before, but they have never heard of anyone coming out of it." Oh! Chen Ronghuo showed a hint of surprise when he heard this. With a flash of his eyes, he suddenly used the identification ability of ancient books to face the mist lingering in the distance. Forest mist, not aggressive, but it can hinder vision, affect the soul, and make people lose their way in the fog. The fog of the forest is generated by a magic circle in the valley due to spontaneous operation. This forest mist formation was set up 300 years ago by Gao Sen, the extraordinary warlock of both water and wood elements, who was the first warlock of Beiwu Island, while he was living in seclusion here. Only the lives native to the forest mist are not affected by the forest mist. After identifying the secret of the forest mist, Chen Ronghuo's pupil suddenly shrank slightly. The person he is now is no longer the person he was when he first came to this world. He naturally knows that warlocks are divided into two major realms. One is the mortal realm, and the other is the transcendent realm. The mortal state is just a state in the process of gradually shedding the mortal body, while the extraordinary state is the truly extraordinary state after shedding the mortal body. There is not even a single transcendent realm warlock on Bawu Island now. Some transcendent realm warlocks are also called king-level warlocks. The corresponding warrior is a king-level warrior. The corresponding demon is the king-level demon. Chen Ronghuo never imagined that this misty valley would be the secluded place of the once most powerful extraordinary warlock on Bawu Island. After identifying the origin of the forest mist, Chen Ronghuo shook his head and said to Huanglin and Zhu Deipen, "It's getting late. Let's find a place to camp first and stay nearby for one night." Although he was curious about what the first warlock of Bawu Island 300 years ago was doing here, he would not explore it, at least not now. After hearing Chen Ronghuo's words, Huanglin and Zhu Deipen felt helpless. Obviously, Chen Ronghuo has made up his mind to enter the Misty Valley tomorrow. Seeing the appearance of the two of them, Chen Ronghuo smiled and said, "Don't worry, I haven't lived enough yet, and I won't die. I said that when I enter the Misty Valley, I naturally have a way to get out of it, so I do this. You two follow me. As long as you follow my instructions and don't wander around after entering, you will definitely be fine." Huanglin nodded and brushed his left hand over the blade of the dagger, as if feeling its edge. Of course he knew that since Chen Ronghuo dared to enter the Misty Valley, he must be certain. It's just that the legend of Misty Valley has been passed down for hundreds of years. Over the past hundreds of years, countless people have entered and never come out. Now he has to enter this terrifying place with Chen Ronghuo, and he really has no choice but to worry. His dark and resolute face was reflected on the cold and smooth sword blade. He hoped that everything would go well tomorrow, but if it didn't go well, he had already planned to face death. "Ha, since the young master said so, I will accompany you for a trip tomorrow." Zhu Deipen laughed after being silent for a while. "I believe you, master. If you say there is no danger, master, there is definitely no danger. What you said sounds good to me." Chen Ronghuo also made a joke. Then the three of them walked along the edge of the Misty Valley, and then stopped under a large broadleaf tree in a fairly wide area. "Sir, let's go here." Huanglin looked around and checked whether there were any strange footprints nearby. After confirming that it was safe, he said, "The view here is wide. How about we camp here tonight?" "Okay, you can handle these." Chen Ronghuo nodded. Professional matters should naturally be handed over to professionals. Then he used the identification technique in ancient books to look at everything nearby. He did this to increase his knowledge and to see if there was any danger around. Broad-leaved wood, a common large tree growing in the mountains and forests. In the early morning, the leaves will roll up a lot of water droplets. The water droplets on several leaves gathered together are equivalent to the normal amount of water an adult drinks in a day. Stargrass, a rare silver herb. At this time, Huanglin had checked the surroundings and found that there was no danger. He walked to a distance and made a few warning traps. Then he took out the insect repellent powder from the black package he was carrying and sprinkled it around the big tree. Exploring the way, setting up camp, every time our hunting team goes into the mountains, Huanglin is responsible for these. He is very familiar with these things and has never made any mistakes. If the shadow leopard was not too cunning a few days ago and was able to restrain its breath, there would be no accidents. And last time, Huanglin actually found the shadow leopard in the end. It's just that he is much weaker than the shadow leopard, so he couldn't avoid its attack. Zhu Deipen stood beside Chen Ronghuo and explained. Chen Ronghuo looked at Huanglin with a serious face, thinking about something, then he smiled at Zhu Deipen, who was standing beside him bored, and asked, "What about you, do you stand like this every time?" Zhu Deipen's expression froze, and he hurried forward to help Huanglin. Chen Ronghuo shook his head, leaned against the big tree, and sat down on a flat stone that Huanglin had just moved under the tree. After walking for such a long time, he was a little tired. It was getting darker and darker. Meow. In Xiahe village, the fat cat lay on the roof and shook his head. It seemed to have fallen asleep and just woke up. After waking up, it called out and looked into the distance for a few times. After finding nothing, it shook its head, jumped off the house. Then it seemed to be a little hungry, walked into the house, came to another room where salted fish were stored, and took out a salted fish. Ugh! It was just that this salted fish, which was extremely delicious to it before, it vomited it all in one mouthful after eating a few bites. Pa! Then a flash of anger flashed in its eyes, and with a flick of its head, the salted fish was thrown out of the yard by it, and flew dozens of meters away. At this time, the sky had completely darkened, and it walked around in the yard a little irritably. This irritable state made it release waves of powerful pressure from its body. Such pressure immediately pressed the semi-petrified river crab in the corner of the wall to move back again. Roar! The fat cat heard the noise, looked at the half-petrified river crab, and seemed to have thought of something. Suddenly, he walked in front of it with a cat step, growled, and slightly enlarged his body. Then, he hooked the big river crab with one of his front paws and dragged it into the house. The river crab's protruding eyes showed fear, and he didn't know what this terrifying big cat was going to do to him. Thanks to excuse me, everyone here is for the reward. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 49. You can't light a fire at night in the mountains. Some beasts are afraid of fire, but some powerful demons hate flames from the bottom of their hearts. When they see flames, they are very likely to come looking for them. In the night, Chen Ronghuo and 3 people gathered together. Huanglin said softly. I see. Chen Ronghuo nodded in understanding. Master, you can't do it easily. Master, if you can attack with all your strength, let's light the flames and deliberately attract a few demons. That would be great. Zhu Deipen shook his head and sighed. In his eyes, the mysterious Chen Ronghuo was at least a mid-level warlock in the mortal transformation realm. With such strength, he couldn't do anything easily. It was a pity for him to think about it. Chen Ronghuo glanced at Zhu Deipen. Don't always think about causing trouble. Even if I can take action with all my strength, I can't do it easily when I don't know the situation. There are many people in this world who are better than me. If they are not careful, they will die without knowing how. Don't worry, sir, I understand this. Zhu Deipen chuckled and said, just like Ho-san did that day. This boy relied on his strength and even ignored me when he grew up. Didn't he fall into trouble at the hands of you, young master? Huanglin on the side suddenly interrupted when he heard this. Don't say bad things about Ho-san behind his back. If you hadn't used Ho-san as a wrestling handle every day when he was a child, how could he have knocked you down after he became stronger? Don't tell the young master about this trivial matter of yours. Chen Ronghuo was immediately speechless. Zhu Deipen's face turned red when Huanglin said that. He was speechless and glared at Huanglin fiercely. Okay. Chen Ronghuo shook his head, took his package over, took out a few pieces of dried meat, handed 2 pieces each to Huanglin and Zhu Deipen and said, eat something, and then take the time to rest. We will go into the mountains tomorrow. Okay. Zhu Deipen's eyes immediately lit up when he saw the dried meat handed over by Chen Ronghuo. After he took the dried meat, he immediately put it into his mouth and started chewing it. The dried meat that Chen Ronghuo took out was only the size of a piece of candy, and it didn't look particularly good looking, just like a wrinkled piece of dried fruit. But after he took it into his mouth, the texture and the rich meaty aroma made Zhu Deipen almost bite off his tongue. Young master, Zhu Deipen said while eating, Your skills are really amazing. If I had your skills, I would go to Bewu City and open a restaurant. It is estimated that I will earn more in 1 year than everyone in Xiaohe village earned in 10 years. Before Chen Ronghuo could reply, Huang Lin directly insulted Zhu Daipen. That's all you can do. Yes, Zhu Daipen was not ashamed, but proud. He chuckled and said, I'm not a young master. I don't have that much ability. A little bit of success is enough. At this time, Chen Ronghuo still couldn't tell that Zhu Daipen, a fool, was trying his best to slap his own horse. It's just that this guy's brain circuit seems to be different from ordinary people, and the sound of the horse he shoots is also different. He felt a little funny and ignored this guy. After a while, all three of them had eaten 2 pieces of dried meat. These 2 pieces of dried meat are not big, but they are rich in nutrients. They were all made by Chen Ronghuo with his left hand. These 2 pieces of dried meat would be enough to last them until tomorrow morning. After eating, Zhu Daipen stretched his body and said, what a pity. After eating this delicious food, it would be better if I boxed a few times. Huang Lin on the side nodded and rarely refuted Zhu Daipen. The dried meat that Chen Ronghuo brought out was a real tonic to them. It would be a waste if you don't punch a few times after eating to convert the energy contained in it into strength. Most warriors practice by absorbing energy from food, and then converting that energy into their own qi and blood through practicing exercises. But there is too little energy in ordinary food. Their stomachs are just that big, so how much can they eat every day? Maybe they eat 3 to 5 meals, but they may not be able to compare with the energy contained in these 2 pieces of dried meat. Also, the energy in dried meat is very easy to absorb. However, it takes a long time to absorb the energy in ordinary food. Sir, please rest first. I'll keep watch. After eating, Huang Lin looked at the time and said to Chen Ronghuo. Yes, Chen Ronghuo nodded and followed. The secret technique I practice is a bit special, and I really need more rest now. Zhu Daipen, you and Huang Lin will take turns keeping vigil tonight. No need, but before Zhu Daipen could speak, Huang Lin glanced at Zhu Daipen and shook his head and said, don't worry, young master, I can do it alone. I don't worry about letting him keep watch at night. Chen Ronghuo was startled. Zhu Daipen seemed a little embarrassed. It was as if something had happened when he was keeping vigil before. He coughed and said to Chen Ronghuo, Sir, this guy Huang Lin is not strong, but his endurance is absolutely incredible. In the past, every time he went into the mountain, he would keep watch. Even if he stayed awake for 3 or 4 days in a row and stayed awake for 3 or 4 days in a row, he would not lose his energy at all. Oh! Chen Ronghuo glanced at Huang Lin in surprise. He was able to identify Huang Lin's attributes using ancient books. When he identified Huang Lin's attributes for the first time, he learned that Huang Lin's willpower was extremely strong. But he still didn't expect that Huang Lin could stay awake for 3 or 4 days in a row. That's fine. He nodded. For him, it didn't matter who was on guard, as long as he could ensure safety. Then he turned around and went to the tent under the tree to rest. This tent was not brought from the village, but was built by Huang Lin with cut branches and leaves of broad-leaved trees. It looked a bit simple, but also interesting. Seeing Chen Ronghuo enter the tent, Huang Lin's skinny body moved, like a spirit ape, a few steps up a big tree, sitting on the branch, looking around with bright eyes. At the same time, the short sword, which was only slightly longer than the dagger, was held in his hand and hidden under his arm. In the dark night, it was like a poisonous snake in the shadow. As for Zhu Daipen, he walked to the edge of the tent next to Chen Ronghuo, holding a thick-backed knife, and sat cross-legged. Roar! At night, roars sounded from the depths of the mountains. Chen Ronghuo was awakened several times while sleeping in the green leaf tent. However, he did not come out in a fuss, but endured it all. It seemed that he was actually very familiar with these things and was not afraid of them. It was not until the next morning when the sun shone through the gap of the green leaf tent, shining on Chen Ronghuo's face, reflecting a brilliant golden color, that he opened his eyes and walked out of the tent. Hoo-hoo. However, as soon as he came out, he saw Zhu Deipen throwing his thick back knife aside, leaning against the big tree behind him, sleeping soundly. When he looked at Huang Lin again, he saw that Huang Lin seemed to have sensed something and happened to look at him at this time. Huang Lin, who had not slept all night, jumped down from the tree without making a sound after seeing Chen Ronghuo. And his spirit seemed to be as full as before. Chen Ronghuo was a little amazed. Although Huang Lin's cultivation was not good, he was really capable. If he is trained well, he will probably be a strong helper in the future. Thinking of this, he looked at Zhu Deipen again and felt a little disgusted. This guy is at most a guard. And he is the kind of guard who can only fight hard. It is impossible to expect Zhu Deipen to do some detailed things for him. However, Zhu Deipen seems to be practicing flattery now. If he practices well, it would be a change of pace in his spare time to follow him. Thinking of this, he walked to Zhu Deipen and kicked him with his foot. Ah, comfortable. Zhu Deipen woke up and stretched subconsciously. But when he was halfway through stretching, he saw Chen Ronghuo and Huang Lin looking at him strangely, and his expression froze. Mr. Zhu Deipen froze for a moment, then suddenly scratched his head. Are you okay? Did I just dream? I just dreamed that you fell off a cliff, which made me so anxious. Haha, it's great that you're okay. Chen Ronghuo. I'm a bit stuck today, so I'll update the 400th update yesterday tomorrow, sorry. Landing 300 years in advance. Author, Xiaoji Depeng. Chapter 50. Chapter 49 disappeared. I made some slight modifications and integrated it into this chapter. I won't tell you why. You can't light a fire at night in the mountains. Some beasts are afraid of fire, but some powerful demons hate flames from the bottom of their hearts. When they see flames, they are very likely to come looking for them. In the night, Chen Ronghuo and 3 people gathered together. Huang Lin said softly. I see. Chen Ronghuo nodded in understanding. Master, you can't do it easily. Master, if you can attack with all your strength, let's light the flames and deliberately attract a few demons. That would be great. Zhu Deipen shook his head and sighed. In his eyes, the mysterious Chen Ronghuo was at least a mid-level warlock in the mortal transformation realm. With such strength, he couldn't do anything easily. It was a pity for him to think about it. Chen Ronghuo glanced at Zhu Deipen. Don't always think about causing trouble. Even if I can take action with all my strength, I can't do it easily when I don't know the situation. There are many people in this world who are better than me. If they are not careful, they will die without knowing how. Don't worry, sir, I understand this. Zhu Deipen chuckled and said, just like Ho-san did that day. This boy relied on his strength and even ignored me when he grew up. Didn't he fall into trouble at the hands of you, young master? Huang Lin on the side suddenly interrupted when he heard this. Don't say bad things about Ho-san behind his back. If you hadn't used Ho-san as a wrestling handle every day when he was a child, how could he have knocked you down after he became stronger? Don't tell the young master about this trivial matter of yours. Chen Ronghuo was immediately speechless. Zhu Deipen's face turned red when Huang Lin said that. He was speechless and glared at Huang Lin fiercely. Okay. Chen Ronghuo shook his head, took his package over, took out a few pieces of meat/dried meat, handed 2 pieces each to Huang Lin and Zhu Deipen and said, eat something, and then take the time to rest. We will go into the mountains tomorrow. Okay. Zhu Deipen's eyes immediately lit up when he saw the meat/dried meat handed over by Chen Ronghuo. After he took the meat/dry, he immediately put it into his mouth and started chewing it. The meat/dried meat that Chen Ronghuo took out was only the size of a piece of candy, and its appearance was not particularly good looking, just like a piece of wrinkled dried fruit. But after he took it into his mouth, the texture and the rich aroma of the meat made Zhu Deipen almost bite off his tongue. "Young master," Zhu Deipen said while eating, "your skills are really amazing. If I had your skills, I would go to Beiwu City and open a restaurant. It is estimated that I will earn more in 1 year than everyone in Ziahe village earned in 10 years. Before Chen Ronghuo could reply, Huanglin directly insulted Zhu Deipen, "That's all you can do." Yes, Zhu Deipen was not ashamed, but proud. He chuckled and said, "I'm not a young master. I don't have that much ability. A little bit of success is enough." At this time, Chen Ronghuo still couldn't tell that Zhu Deipen, a fool, was trying his best to slap his own horse. It's just that this guy's brain circuit seems to be different from ordinary people, and the sound of the horse he shoots is also different. He felt a little funny and ignored this guy. After a while, all three of them had eaten 2 pieces of meat/dry. These 2 pieces of meat are not big, but they are rich in nutrients. They were all made by Chen Ronghuo using his left hand. These 2 pieces of meat are enough to last them until tomorrow morning. After eating, Zhu Deipen stretched his body and said, "What a pity. After eating this delicious food, it would be better if I boxed a few times." Huanglin on the side nodded and rarely refuted Zhu Deipen. The meat/dried meat that Chen Ronghuo brought out was a real tonic to them. It would be a waste if you don't punch a few times after eating to convert the energy contained in it into strength. Most warriors practice by absorbing energy from food, and then converting that energy into their own qi and blood through practicing exercises. But there is too little energy in ordinary food. Their stomachs are just that big, so how much can they eat every day? Maybe they eat 3 to 5 meals, but it may not be comparable to the energy contained in these 2 pieces of meat/dry. Also, the energy in the meat/dry is very easy to absorb. However, it takes a long time to absorb the energy in ordinary food. "Sir, please rest first. I'll keep watch." After eating, Huanglin looked at the time and said to Chen Ronghuo. Yes, Chen Ronghuo nodded and followed. "The secret technique I practice is a bit special, and I really need more rest now. Zhu Deipen, you will stay vigil with Huanglin tonight." "No need," but before Zhu Deipen could speak, Huanglin glanced at Zhu Deipen and shook his head and said, "Don't worry, young master, I can do it alone. I don't worry about letting him keep watch at night." Chen Ronghuo was startled. Zhu Deipen seemed a little embarrassed. It was as if something had happened when he was keeping vigil before. He coughed and said to Chen Ronghuo, "Sir, this guy Huanglin is not strong, but his endurance is absolutely incredible. In the past, every time he went into the mountain, he would keep watch. Even if he stayed awake for 3 or 4 days in a row and stayed awake for 3 or 4 days in a row, he would not lose his energy at all." "Oh." Chen Ronghuo glanced at Huanglin in surprise. He was able to identify Huanglin's attributes using ancient books. When he identified Huanglin's attributes for the first time, he learned that Huanglin's willpower was extremely strong. But he still didn't expect that Huanglin could stay awake for 3 or 4 days in a row. "That's okay too." He nodded. To him, it didn't matter who kept watch, as long as safety was ensured. Then he turned around and walked to the tent under the tree to rest. This tent was not brought from the village, but was built by Huanglin using cut branches and leaves of broadleaf trees. It looks a bit simple, but it also has a special kind of interest. Seeing Chen Ronghuo enter the tent, Huanglin's thin body moved, like a spiritual ape. He climbed up a big tree in a few steps, sat on the branch, opened his bright eyes, and looked in all directions. At the same time, the dagger, which was only slightly longer than the dagger, was held in his hand, hidden under his arm, like a poisonous snake in the shadows in the dark night. As for Zhu Deipen, he walked to the edge of the tent next to Chen Ronghuo, held the thick-backed knife, and sat down cross-legged. Roar. At night, roars sounded from deep in the mountains. Chen Ronghuo slept in a green leaf tent and was awakened several times. However, he did not come out in a fuss, but endured it all. It seems that he is actually very familiar with these things and is not generally afraid of them. It wasn't until the next morning, when the sun shone through the gaps in the green leaf tent and shone on Chen Ronghuo's face, reflecting a brilliant golden color, that he opened his eyes and walked out of the tent. Whoops! But as soon as he came out, he saw Zhu Deipen throwing aside his thick-backed knife and leaning against the big tree behind him, soundly asleep. When he looked at Huang Lin again, he saw that Huang Lin seemed to be sensing something, and he happened to look at him at this moment. Huang Lin, who had not slept all night, jumped down from the tree without making a sound after seeing Chen Ronghuo. And his energy seemed as full as ever. Chen Ronghuo was somewhat impressed. Although Huang Lin is not good at cultivation, he really has nothing to say in terms of ability. If he is well cultivated, he will probably become a powerful helper for him in the future. Thinking like this, when he looked at Zhu Deipen again, he suddenly felt disgusted. This guy is just a guard at best. And he's the kind of guard who can only fight hard. It was impossible to expect Zhu Deipen to do some detailed things for him. However, Zhu Deipen seems to be practicing flattery now. If he practices well, following him around will be a good way to relax in his free time. With these thoughts in mind, he walked up to Zhu Deipen and kicked him. Ah, comfortable. When Zhu Deipen woke up, he subconsciously stretched his waist. But when he reached halfway, his expression suddenly froze when he saw Chen Ronghuo and Huang Lin looking at him strangely. Mr. Gongzi. After Zhu Deipen froze, he suddenly scratched his head. Are you okay? Did I just have a dream? I just had a dream. I dreamed that you fell off the cliff, sir, but it made me anxious. Haha, sir, you are okay. It's so great, all right. Chen Ronghuo. I dreamed that I fell off a cliff, and then I felt anxious. What does this mean? Is it indirectly proving that he cares about me? Chen Ronghuo was speechless when he saw Zhu Deipen with an embarrassed and exaggerated expression. At the same time, I learned again that there was something wrong with this guy's brain circuit. Maybe his cerebral cortex is multi-layered. This effect can only occur if each layer of the cerebral cortex is smooth and a thing is run through the mind several times. Okay, stop being weird and get up quickly. Huang Lin looked on and said. Zhu Deipen glared at Huang Lin, picked up the thick-backed knife on the ground and stood up. Huang Lin must have known when he fell asleep last night, but he didn't greet him, which really made him a little angry. Huang Lin didn't care. He was indeed able to greet Zhu Deipen in advance and let Zhu Deipen leave a good impression in Chen Ronghuo's heart, but he did not do that. It was not that he was jealous that Zhu Deipen might become Chen Ronghuo's bodyguard, but that Chen Ronghuo was his savior, and he felt that he needed to let Chen Ronghuo understand Zhu Deipen's character before making a decision on whether to accept Zhu Deipen as his bodyguard. At this time, after Zhu Deipen stood up, Chen Ronghuo also glanced at Huang Lin thoughtfully. He could vaguely guess what Huang Lin was thinking. At the same time, he once again felt that the person he had brought back from the brink of death was indeed somewhat capable. The sun was still warm on this day. Chen Ronghuo spent most of the day chatting with Huang Lin and Zhu Deipen. Of course, he was mostly listening to the so-called small talk. Huang Lin and Zhu Deipen were talking, and he only occasionally interjected a few words. Soon, the time came after 3 o'clock in the afternoon and almost 4 o'clock. It's time to go. Chen Ronghuo stood up from the stone. Huang Lin and Zhu Deipen were shocked and stood up with weapons in hand. What was supposed to come finally came. However, after a day of preparation, the two of them were no longer as nervous as they were at the beginning. When a white cloud covered half of the sun, several people came to the edge of the misty valley again. The fog here is strange. Outside the misty valley, there was no trace of fog. But in the misty valley, which was only one step away, there was rolling fog. Let's go. After entering, remember not to walk around. Everything must be under my command. Chen Ronghuo said in a deep voice. Got it, sir. Zhu Deipen and Huang Lin both agreed. Chen Ronghuo had told them this many times before. At the same time, they all kept it in mind. Facing the terrifying misty valley where almost no one has ever walked out, they naturally would not joke with their lives. After agreeing, Zhu Deipen took the thick-backed knife and walked into the misty valley first. Then came Chen Ronghuo. Huang Lin followed him with a dagger in his hand. After entering the misty valley, Chen Ronghuo discovered that the fog in the valley was formed by countless dense and strange small fog droplets, which were tightly packed together. These small mist drops are hazy and dense. If you look closely, they seem to be eyes staring at you. As the wind blows, these mist drops hit the warm skin, and the pores immediately become cold, with a trace of abnormal cold air seeping in. At the same time, the fog here makes it difficult to see the situation 3 or 4 meters away. Woo! There is also a faint sob accompanied by the sound of the wind, which sounds in the ears of several people. It seems that behind several people, or in a corner, there is an illusory woman hiding in the mist, watching them and crying. At the same time, looking far away, in the depths of the mist, there seem to be several huge shadows shaking. Young master. Zhu Deipen felt his scalp tingling. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva and turned back to greet Chen Ronghuo. Chen Ronghuo focused his consciousness on the ancient book, and after carefully comparing it with the map, he said, "Go forward, and when you get to the tree in front, touch the tree with your hand." He seemed extremely calm. But deep in his heart, he also had the feeling of wanting to flee. Although he had a good heart, not long ago, he was just a college student who had just graduated on Earth. How could he have seen such a weird scene? Swish. As soon as Chen Ronghuo finished speaking, Huang Lin's figure flashed, holding a dagger, and appeared beside him. His sharp eyes, like an eagle, stared at Zhu Deipen's side. At the same time, Zhu Deipen's hair stood up and he turned his head quickly. Then he saw an illusory woman in white, who appeared at some point, floating 1 meter away from him, smiling weirdly at him. The reason why it is called weird is that although this woman in white is extremely beautiful, she has no hair, not even a scalp. Her head is covered in blood, as if it was forcibly peeled off by someone. Obviously, this is not a human at all. But a female ghost in white? Huh. After seeing the female ghost in white, Zhu Deipen was startled, and suddenly a murderous look appeared on his face. With a flash of knife light, the thick-backed knife came out of his hand, carrying a fierce wind, and cut through the female ghost in white. In an instant, the body of the female ghost in white was split into 2 halves. Just when a trace of blood oozed out, her face that was split into 2 halves showed a more weird smile. Even the half-lips on its 2 halves seemed to be moving slightly, telling some kind of prophecy that was destined to come true. Seeing this scene, Chen Ronghuo was shocked and reacted at this time. He thought about it and quickly used the identification ability of the ancient book on the female ghost. Misty ghost of the forest, good at confusing and intimidating, with a virtual ghost body, gathering and dispersing invisibly, it is difficult to destroy with ordinary attacks. This ghost is one of the thousands of obsessions extracted from the Black Mist Spirit Pearl by the extraordinary sorcerer Gao Senator. It has been integrated with the Forest Mist Array and is elusive. People with weak wills will be mentally broken and collapse to death if they are frightened by this ghost for a long time. However, this thing does not have the ability to kill people directly. It turns out to be a toy to scare people. When the results of the appraisal came out, Chen Ronghuo's eyes flashed. The scene that was just frightened by the white-clothed female ghost has dissipated for the most part. However, after receiving Gao Sen's message again and seeing the 4 words Black Mist Spirit Pearl, he was moved again. Needless to say, Gao Sen was the first person in Beiwu Island 300 years ago, and his name was extremely loud. As for the 4 words Black Mist Spirit Pearl, Chen Ronghuo was also in Ziahe village. He heard the villagers occasionally mention it and knew that it was a powerful treasure. It's just that this powerful treasure, which is obviously the treasure of the Black Mist Island, which is hostile to the White Mist Island, and has been passed down for thousands of years, I don't know how it appeared in Gao Sen's hands 300 years ago. This thought flashed through his mind, and he temporarily put it aside. Now is not the time for him to think about this. Chapter 1, please recommend. Chapter 2 will be available at 12 noon, and the additional chapter will be at 6 p.m. in the future. 2 chapters will be released every day in the morning, and additional chapters will be released at 6 p.m. In addition, it feels that the daily push of 600 is far away, so I changed the additional chapter conditions. In the future, the additional chapter conditions for the next day will be released every day. As long as the daily push reaches 400 today, an additional chapter will be added tomorrow. I hope everyone will support Dopang again.